Hi guys, welcome back to History 109. I'm Sarah again, and I am your professor this semester. So as we get started here, I just want to go over a couple of things with you. So number one is that your course schedule, it looks like everyone at this point has found it. So good job, you guys. But make sure that if you haven't printed out your course schedule yet, that you go ahead and you print out your course schedule. Also, I've had a couple of questions over exactly how to do both your primary source document analysis and your summary and assessments. So your summary and assessments, what I'm wanting you guys to do is I want you to look at the course schedule, and you'll have two sections there. It'll say what chapter. You do a summary and assessment on that chapter. They're due on Saturdays, and it's due on the date that it's listed on your course schedule. And then it'll have a couple of chapters and then AB beside it. That stands for audiobook. That is only for the one person in the class who got the audiobook. So from there, we're going to just go ahead and jump into... Oh, I forgot to do the primary source document analysis. So the primary source document analysis, I want you to find a specific piece from history and do your primary source document analysis on that. So imagine for a second that you can go back in time and see something that was created during that time. So let's say we're talking about the Civil War, like we're going to talk about here in the next couple of minutes. What you would do is you would do a primary source document analysis of something from that period. So something from the Civil War. You can do a primary source document analysis on a picture of someone from the Civil War. You can do it on a diary entry from the Civil War. Shoot, if somebody found a can of ham, you could do it on a can of ham from the Civil War. So, but from there, let's go ahead and let's start talking about Reconstruction. Sorry, I'm hungry. I'm going to do some eating while I'm doing this. Turns out in graduate school, if you guys ever decide to go on to graduate school, basic human necessities like eating and sleeping, those are all considered either luxury or procrastinating. So, I'm going to have a little bit of chocolate while we go through this. So let's talk about the 4 visions of Civil War memory. Civil War memory can be divided into 4 different types. First, there's this idea of Reconstruction and the Reconstructionalist kind of motivation behind the Civil War. So this is led by Abraham Lincoln, and when they talked about the 10% plan in the videos from the last lecture, this is really what they're talking about. They want to bring the South back into the fold, back into the Union. And they want it to make it really simple so that the South can just come back in and it'll be perfect and normal like usual. And they have to try to figure out how to deal with the death and the devastation from the Civil War. You also have the emancipationist idea with it. These people wanting to give full freedom to African Americans, socially, economically, constitutionally, and have them have the same rights of white men, and keep the rights of white men intact. And then you have the white supremacist idea, which is a group that wants to instill fear into the new participants of the electoral polity. So they want to instill fear into the new black voters. And then you've got radical republicanism, which is led by people like those who proposed the Wade Davis bill. They're made up of emancipationists here, Northern ultras there, some industrialists, and they'll break with Lincoln over political aims of the Civil War. They're the ones who really want to get out of the Civil War and really punish those in the South for creating all of this havoc and this devastation. And they want congressional control over Reconstruction after Lincoln's death. So let's talk about emancipation for a minute. So by the summer of 1862, you have slaves flocking to the Union Army in order to be emancipated. And these large groups of former slaves moving into the North and moving into the Northern Army will take this image of being docile and being willing to remain in servitude. It will really kind of change the way that the North sees slavery. And with the Emancipation Proclamation, you'll have over 3 million slaves freed, but only in the Confederate States. And then you'll have 180,000 who will join the Union Army. Now, this doesn't free any of the ones who are in the Union, so those who are in Kentucky, New York, places like that where you have pretty good sized groups of slaves. They will not be freed until after the end of the war. So the question is with this revolution of the South, how do you end the Civil War? How do you return the Confederate States of America into the Union? And these are questions that Lincoln is struggling with when he's killed in April of 1865 when Andrew Johnson takes over. So Johnson's plan really closely reflects Lincoln's musings at the time of his death. So he'll pass some bills, but he'll also start working out this question of how do you bring the South back into the fold. So according to Johnson, states, even those who seceded, should have the right to govern themselves. The federal government should have no right in determining voting requirements beyond having very basic pieces like you shouldn't have any kind of race that determines who gets to vote. Beyond that, there should be no voting requirements that the government instills. And then there'll be the government, the United States government, the full government should have no right to question issues of state, how they manage their budget, how they run themselves, things like that. So in action, Johnson's plan develops into a couple of different things. So he'll want to repay the war debt, first and foremost. And then he'll try to figure out a way for southern states to have free reign to rebuild. So he will also propose the 13th Amendment, so no slavery whatsoever. And he'll want those who were former slave states to swear loyalty to the Union before they can be readmitted. Any confiscated land from Southern slaveholders that was taken during the Civil War will be redistributed by the Army and turned into the Freedmen's Bureau, which was established specifically for refugees and for freed slaves. So, and that happens in 1865 after the end of the war. Now, my dog is coming in here to love on me. Yes, Bo, I know. Yes, this is my dog, Bo. He's playing the role of Oscar today. So the blue states that you have here will ratify, if you look over in the top right-hand corner with the picture of the United States there, you'll have in blue, yeah, you can't eat chocolate, you'll have the 13th Amendment and its dates for ratification. So those that are in blue are ratified in 1865. The green ones ratify between 65 and 70. Yes, please don't lick my face. And then the purple will initially reject it and then ratify later. So the green ones, those are really the ones who enter the Union after the Civil War largely. Texas, not so much. Florida, I don't think was really part of the Union at that time. I think we were still contested over the entrance of Florida at this time. But beyond that, you have the gray states that are not in the United States whatsoever. They're territories at this point, so they can't ratify this anyways. But them not accepting slavery will be part of their admittance into the United States when they come in. Now, for those places that are in purple, now those are the real key ones. Kentucky and Delaware, don't worry about ratifying this this amendment so much because they are already part of the Union. So they don't worry about trying to ratify it because they don't have to be readmitted to the Union. And so it will take them, in some cases, almost 50 years to ratify or more. So in the case of Kentucky, they considered it, it just slipped our mind. We just forgot to ratify it. It's not that, we didn't agree to ratify it. We just forgot. The case with Mississippi, I'm not really sure of, but Delaware and Kentucky are the next two soonest. But then Mississippi actually won't ratify it until 1995, a long time later. So with presidential reconstruction, you have Andrew Johnson, who wants to have a really lenient policy on Southern readmittance to the Union. He wants to follow Lincoln's 10% plan. And then you've got these radical Republicans over here who come to power during the congressional elections of 1866. And like I said, they really want to punish the South. They want to prevent the Southern ruling class from retaking the government. And so they propose the Wade Davis bill, which is where you have to take an ironclad oath to be readmitted. And it has to be based on those who never joined the Confederate Army. It's passed in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, but Lincoln will not pass this this bill. And what he does is something called a pocket veto, where he will take a law that's been approved by the House of Representatives and the Senate, and instead of signing it, he'll just say, "Oh, I'll get to it later." And then he doesn't. And by default, after 10 days, if it's not signed in 10 days, then it falls apart. Now, I just want to point out a couple things with this this piece of legislation here, this oath that they're wanting people to take. Number one, you've got huge swaths of the South who are just your general voters entering into the Confederate States of America. It is part of their moral, identification for themselves that they see it as part of their responsibility to enter into the Confederate Army. So you'll see documents where you'll have ladies. Give me just a second. I gotta get my dog out of here. Come on, Bo. I'm gonna ask her both. Get out of here. What? What? Get out here and leave me alone. Sorry about that, guys. So you'll have huge swaths of people who are entering into the Confederate States of America, and you'll find documents. Hi, Bo. Hello again. My dog came back. Hold on just a second. I'm going to lock him out.